Here we are again. 2 years ago, you're up 2-0. You got a 2-goal lead in Game 3, and you all thought, just like I thought, you were going to do what the Islanders couldn't do. You were going to knock off the Lightning, and you were going back to the Stanley Cup final, and we know how all of that turned. It has been a long 2 years, but Ranger fans, you're back! It's been a long 5 days of waiting, but Ranger fans, you're back! Tonight, Madison Square Garden, the Florida Panthers versus your New York Rangers. We will get you set throughout the day. Game 1, Eastern Conference Finals. We will preview it. We'll offer you predictions. We'll give you thoughts. And I want to say this to every single Ranger fan, because we're going to do a lot of things today. Aaron Rodgers made some comments that were interesting. The New York Yankees are causing a portion of their fan base to get nervous, and the New York Mets are going to try to prove they don't completely suck. And we're going to get to all that throughout the show. But I want the Ranger fan to know that we will talk about your team and get you ready for tonight throughout this program. So we have an open communication between the Ranger fans and New York City. You know the toll-free number, 877-337-6666. Tiki Barber is on very important NFL CBS business. I can't talk about what the business is, but he's on very important business. So, ladies and gentlemen, the man who makes out with his brother-in-law every time the Rangers win a playoff game, Shaun in the big chair.
Let's go, Rangers. What's up, Ev? Let's go.
I am fired up. I'm pumped up.
I am too.
Because it is a long journey to get back to this round. It is. It's a long journey. Getting to the conference finals in any sport, getting to a league championship in any sport, a conference championship in any sport, is very, very difficult. We know how difficult it is. And for this Ranger team that has been built to win a Stanley Cup, and for a Ranger team with expectations of winning a Stanley Cup, you knew inevitably you were going to have to get to this round, and I think inevitably get through this team. So I know you're excited, but I also can tell in your eyes, you're a little nervous. A little nervous.
Of course.
Tiny bit.
Of course. We're in a repent for our sins of 2 years ago series, Evan, and the pulse of the newsroom, the Ranger fan, I can tell you as well. Today's the first day I felt a little Ranger nerves.
And you know why I also could tell you nervous?
Why?
Because last night I'm sitting there and I'm back in my chair. I'm watching baseball. I'm frustrated by the New York Mets. More on them later. And I'm watching the New York Yankees lose a baseball game to the Seattle Mariners. And in my opinion, over a long baseball season, good teams are going to struggle. They're going to have streaks where they don't play their best baseball. Yesterday was one of those days. Juan Soto and Aaron Judge did nothing. They lost a baseball game to a team I happen to like in the Seattle Mariners. And I sensed from a tweet Shaun put out last night that your Ranger concern was leaking over to your Yankee concerns. Quote, I never want to react or overreact to baseball losses, but for as good as the Yankees have been, they have now let the other two best teams in the AL punch them in the mouth this season. Shaun also went on to say, Dennis Santana was the human white flag tonight. I sensed like an angst off a regular season loss to the Seattle Mariners, and I ask you this question, and I ask every Yankee fan this question, why? Like, are you concerned about the New York Yankees?
So I think that you don't want to, kind of dip your toe both in the water. But has to be some concern.
To what?
It doesn't mean they're not going to make the playoffs. It doesn't mean they're not going to win the division and be the top seed in the American League. But the same core concerns about the Yankees now have poked their head out in two separate series.
Which is what?
Which is, for as deep as the lineup is and unloading as the lineup is, when they trail in some of these games early, even if a pitcher's giving them everything, but Clark Schmidt gives up 2 runs, when they get blanked, until Glaber hit the home run last night, it looks ugly. And when they try to mount comebacks versus the elite teams, which now we know are the Orioles and Mariners as we approach Memorial Day, they fall short. And case in point, last night, Anthony Volpe continues his hit streak, his on-base streak, gets to second base on a pass ball, and you're setting yourself up for the vaunted Soto Judge back-to-back, the Bash brothers, here we are. And, you get a little ground ball that should have been a double play if Volpe didn't get the second from Soto. And Judge can't take how many Aaron Judge at-bats do we need to see where he turns around on a first pitch, flies out, and it kills a rally. So as much and as dangerous as those guys are, The similar kind of stuff happened versus Baltimore earlier in the year, and these are the problems that continue to happen every year in the postseason with the Yankees.
Yeah.
The untimeliness of hitting.
I think one of the most overrated things in baseball, and you know I love this sport, but one of the most overrated things in baseball is thinking that games in May or games in April have a damn thing to do with games in October.
Well, what do you mean? Of course
they have absolutely nothing to do with it.
I absolutely do.
No, they don't. Because, and I'll give you evidence. First of all, here's the Yankee goal for this season. It's simple. Pile up as many wins as possible and do something we haven't seen during the Aaron Judge era. And you know what that is? Go into the American League playoffs as the team to beat. Have home field advantage throughout the American League playoffs. You know the last time the Yankees had that? You got to go all the way back to the CC Sabathia, Mark Teixeira era. 2009.
We were talking about Game 7 yesterday with 04. That's what
because think about it. Every time the Yankees went to the postseason, and we'll call this the Aaron Judge era that really started in 2017. I don't know how else you would define it. It's the Aaron Judge era. Right. Every time they've gone to the postseason in this era, and they've gone there a lot, they've never gone there as the best team in the American League. They've gone there as a good playoff team, as a team that won a lot of games, but as a team that was going to have to go into somebody else's building and win. So to me, here's the way I look at this Yankee regular season, and you're 33-17. Win as many games as possible, over 100, win this division, get home field advantage throughout, and take a chance. Because the one thing we haven't seen from this Yankee team is lose when they're really the better team. When you lose regular season games to another team, it doesn't mean anything. And you want to know why? You want to know why?
Okay, sure. Why?
I'll never forget this. I was arguing with a buddy of mine, the same buddy of mine who was so pissed off that I was saying that if I was a Knicks fan, I would be upset that I lost in the playoffs. But this buddy of mine, who's a Yankee fan, texted me throughout 2015. And he said, Evan, I'm glad you're having fun. The Mets are going nowhere. And I said, how are they going nowhere? They're about to win the NL East. This was right when they were about to win the division. And he said, how have you done against the Cubs this year? How have you done against the St. Louis Cardinals? And I said, who the hell cares? Like, October is different than July. So when the Mets took on the Cubs that year in the National League Championship Series, I don't know if you recall, the Mets swept the Cubs that year?
Yeah, okay.
Do you know what the Mets' record against the Cubs was that season during the regular season?
1-5.
0-7.
0-7, okay.
What the Yankees do against Seattle in May, what the Yankees do against Baltimore in terms of a best-of-5 series come October is absolutely irrelevant. All you need to do is win as many games as possible. So you can't look at Tuesday and Monday and say, oh, my God, we lost to the Mariners. Brian Wu shut us down. This is proof we can't win in October. That is an unhinged opinion. And you know what that opinion's based on? It's based on the fact you're worried about the Rangers.
There might be some truth to that, and I want to make one thing clear. I don't think losing last night for a second straight time to the Mariners, and by the way, you could easily split this series the next two games, means that they can't win in October. But I have seen this core, granted without Juan Soto here, without Verdugo here, I have seen them lose to the Astros in the regular season, lose to the Rays in the regular season, that one year lose to Boston in the regular season, and it be a precursor, unlike your Mets and Cubs series. And ultimately, maybe this is less about the Yankees and more about the Mariners and Orioles. And what I mean by that is you're right. They haven't had home field advantage since 2009. But these games now, while they may not mean as much, on the field in October, they do give those other teams confidence.
Oh, sure.
Stop. No, they do. They do.
Stop.
By the way, you wooed that away during the Stadium Series issue. We argued about this. They can set teams up with a mentality. And the mentality the Yankees have now given the Baltimore Orioles, who they still have to play a ton of baseball left, and for now the Seattle Mariners is, guess what? No matter how big of favorites the Yankees might end up being versus them, borderline versus the Orioles, those teams are going to have confidence and look back on these days. Hey, we punched them. We punched them in the mouth, and we could do this now. It worries me more about those teams because guess what? The Yankees never gained that confidence versus the Houston Astros or the Rays or the Red Sox that year, and it ended up coming to life in the postseason.
The Mariners will not think about a series in May if they're playing the Yankees in a real series in October.
This is their only trip to Yankee Stadium, Evan.
So what?
So if the Yankees are playing a 7-game ALCS versus them, because we have to play Baltimore in the second round apparently.
Yes.
If they're playing an ALCS versus the Seattle Mariners and the series goes back and forth and you get to a Game 7, that team probably has already won a game at Yankee Stadium in the postseason. They're going to look back. We've had our moments. We're not scared of playing in this place.
Not only will they not remember it, and trust me, I have a long-ass memory. When I wrote down my MLB predictions at the beginning of the year, believe it or not, I think I had a Yankees-Mariners playoff series.
And the Mariners winning.
I did. I had the Mariners winning. I can guarantee you this. You won't even remember what happened at Yankee Stadium on May 21st.
I don't have to, but that room will because they're not traveling to Yankee Stadium 40 times this year.
It's no offense, it's ridiculous.
Right. And I know there's 10,000 people in the crowd last night, and I know Trent Grisham's not going to be in the lineup for the playoffs.
Not only is Trent Grisham,
there's a lot of stuff that's different, man.
The way the bullpen was handled would be very, very different.
And that closer is scary, by the way.
Okay, Aaron Boone manages a game in May. Very different than the way he's going to manage a game in October.
I would hope that Dennis Santana isn't pitching the high-leverage innings.
He's not. No, he's not. And sometimes guys will pitch back-to-back days come postseason
tonight. Yes,
no, that's fine. But that's why it is a complete unhinged overreaction to worry about a 2-game losing streak just because the Mariners happen to be 5 games above 500. And in your mind, you're thinking of a fantasy where, well, them beating the Yankees in May somehow gives them the confidence to beat them in October.
Why does it have to be an either-or? Like, I'm not actually worried, but I'm acknowledging concern. And I think there's a difference there.
So let me ask you this then.
Okay.
Because this is the real question every Yankee fan needs to kind of put in their mind. And I have been pro that I think this is a legitimately really good baseball team. That's the way I felt before the season. I feel that way right now. I actually feel even more confident about it. They're 33-17. Garrett Cole hasn't thrown a pitch. They're 33-17, and DJ LeMahieu is not taking an at-bat. They're 33-17, and Jason Dominguez hasn't even come up here yet. They're 33-17, and they've got horses on the way. But in 2022, when the Yankees got off to a 98-esque Yankees start, we all kind of sat here and said, there's something off about this team.
Yeah.
And we looked at their lineup, and it was obvious. You looked at the Yankee lineup, and you still saw pieces of that lineup that were clearly weak. And clearly they were going to have to improve. And so to me, while the Yankees were piling up wins in 2022, it was kind of uncomfortable because you hate to crap on a team when they're off to that kind of start, but you're looking deeper at them to say, yeah, they're off to a start like this, but here's why I don't think they're that good. I look at the Yankees, IBO, and I truly am, and here's what I see. I see a lineup that's loaded. I see a lineup that is actually better than even the way it's performed.
It's more balanced for sure. It's not home run or nothing, despite the fact that it took Glaber's homer to bring him back, and Volpe is evident of that at the top of the order.
That's one game.
And LeMahieu coming back, hopefully.
I see DJ on the way. I see Dominguez on the way. I do not see the Yankee lineup as an issue. That's number one. Number two, I look at their rotation, and I say, wow, I don't think they're all going to keep this up. But they've got Garrett Cole on the way. No. And with the bullpen, and I touched on this yesterday, they clearly will need to add an arm or two come July. But even their bullpen's going to get stronger. You mentioned Tommy Kahnle coming back. I mentioned the fact that Luis Gil probably ends up in their bullpen. And so here's what I see. Again, without the Rangers making me nervous and without the biased eyes, I see a baseball team that's damn good. And I see no reason to look at a loss on a Monday night and a loss on a Tuesday night, your first 2-game losing streak in a month. I see no reason to look at that and say, uh-oh, the tsunami is coming. Look, I see a loaded-ass baseball team that, quite frankly, I wish I rooted for.
By the way, a tsunami doesn't have to come, Evan. A tsunami doesn't have to come. They could win 100 games, lose 62 games. We get it. It's baseball, up, down, left, right, the whole thing. Here's the deal, though. It's super fun for a weekend when Aaron Judge and Soto's hitting 2 homers and you're crushing the Chicago White Sox. It's awesome when you fly out to the West Coast, as they will, and I'm sure, beat the heck out of the Angels. That'll be all good times. But the teams you're going to have to play if you get home field, the Orioles and Mariners is probably their path. It just feels odd to me that we all flexed and were pumped up because it finally felt like they were slaying the Astros, who I think are dead and buried. And here it is, and you get past them, and these two teams have looked the Yankees in the eye and said, you can't punk us. You can't punk us. And I don't know how that changes from those teams, who, by the way, also could add and get better before October.
So what are you saying? You're afraid of good teams? Is that really what you're scared of?
It's not being afraid of good teams. It's saying I don't know how you could be the way I'm cocky or confident about the Rangers, I'm not cocky or confident about the Yankees versus those teams.
I'm going to tell you why. Okay, so Aaron Judge has a track record, and that track record is great regular season player, and unfortunately, for the most part in the postseason, he's come up small.
Yeah.
Right?
Like because he pulls moves like last. Take a pitch, Aaron.
Okay, fair enough. Here's the difference, and I said this to you the moment you guys traded for him. You have something really, really special in your lineup that you never had. You had Juan Soto. And let me tell you one thing about Juan Soto that I certainly learned firsthand, and we all learned back in 2019. Juan Soto's not a bully hitter. Juan Soto doesn't just beat up on crappy pitching. And if you don't believe me, ask the Astros. They'll tell you all about Juan Soto in 2019. So if your worry is, hey, I think the Yankees are bullies because that's the way it sounds, They beat up on these bad teams. They face a good team. They face teams with good pitching. They wilt. First of all, I would certainly not use the sample size you've cited because they're the only team that's gone to Cleveland and won a series yet this season. The only team. And that's a fact. You can look that up because the Mets just didn't do it.
Yeah,
they're looking to salvage a game right now. The Yankees are the only team that went to Cleveland and won a series this season. So the idea they can't beat good teams is a fallacy to begin with. But the second thing is, I don't look at this team with that track record of fear that you have because it's different. Juan Soto makes it different.
But that's why I'm not worried.
Makes it different.
Soto, Volpe, even to a lesser extent Verdugo. Let's see if and when Dominguez comes up. That is why I'm not using the word worry. But last night, the night before the Baltimore series, despite everything looking and feeling different, some of the same ghosts of Yankees past are still reigning supreme, and I don't give a damn if it's April and May. The games count the same.
You know who I blame for all of this? I blame all this on Gary Bettman and the New York Knicks. Because if the New York Knicks had won on Sunday or Friday, they would have played last night in Boston, and Yankee fans would have been distracted. If Gary Bettman started the Eastern Conference Finals last night or Monday night, we would have watched the Rangers go down 0-1 or go up 1-0, and we'd all be distracted. But here's the good news. Tonight, the distraction begins. The New York Rangers begin their embark on returning to a Stanley Cup final. Your call's on the Rangers. Your call's on the Yankees.